Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express. This morning, we take a look at the biggest stories that have made headlines. But before that, press review shall spill over into this section of the hour because we were talking about one of the biggest stories that are making headlines this morning. MPs being told to refund 1 million shillings illegal house allowance. This is both on the front page of the Business Daily as well as the Daily Nation. Joy, you're about to tell us your take on that?
Yes, you know, in this new constitutional dispensation, the place of constitutional commissions has been cemented.
Yeah.
They cannot be wished away. And at the time when the SRC was trying to tell Parliamentary Service Commission, you used to call the shots as far as the perks and the remuneration of parliamentarians is concerned. But guess what? There's a new kid on the block. The Parliamentary Service Commission was very quick to and rubbish them away. Now, look at where they are, because those refunds are coming from people who have other loans. Those refunds are coming from people who are preparing to go into a new election. It is the worst possible timing. I would not be surprised if the MPs just called a session to fire the entire SRC. But be that as it may, the law has already come out, and I expect parliamentarians to make a lot of noise against it. But at the end of the day, we need to learn that it's a new dispensation, and there is somebody else who's rhyming and making the remuneration of state and public officers have a certain rhyme and reason to it. You can't have Parliament sitting and deciding this is what we are going to be paying ourselves. I mean, that 250,000, when they passed it, all of us were like, come on, stop already. Now, see your life. Pay it back. We're waiting.
Okay, see your life. Now, Gloria, what's your take on this one?
For me, I think this is it's an era we need to recognize that there are systems that have been placed by our constitution, yes, the 2010 constitution, where we are able to have checks and balances, where we are able to have separation of powers between independent institutions and actually give oversight to the relevant budget holders. And, you know, these people are collecting 250,000 house allowance.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to bring about is how many MPs do we have now? And how many MPs is the BBI proposing to bring into office? And then that's just one aspect of it. And I'm pretty sure that if you were to audit the kind of money that we are losing, spending on these members of parliament, spending on these senators, governors, and all these elected officials, just in terms of the packs that you throw at them, we really need to look into what we are actually doing and the direction that BBI is trying to take us. Because had it been that this hiccup, let me call it a hiccup, had it been that this hiccup, this illegality had happened at a time when we had passed the 600 and something MPs, how much money would we have lost and how much money would we be trying to recuperate? And of course we know, just like the deadline that we were given for the COVID billionaires, that after I don't know how many days we are going to see justice, they'll be brought to book. Of course we know that this is just going to be extended, and like Joy Midivo said, you know, we wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, the House actually getting rid of the SRC, the commission. And of course we know at the end of the day, chances are we are not going to recover this money. So I think for me at this moment is, ask yourself, this is the work that these elected politicians are doing with the lean, I'll call it lean, with the lean elected officials that we have. When BBI comes to tell you that they are now bringing 600 and something MPs, ask yourself how much money we are going to be spending on them.
Okay, Mark, your take?
Well, I will avoid connecting everything to BBI and discuss what is really the issue here. The issue is the issue of what a parliamentarian thinks they deserve vis-a-vis what is supposed to happen in Parliament. Number one, we need to address this expanded expectation of Parliament, because parliamentarians have continually said, and this is true, and this is not to say that I agree with them, because I absolutely do not, that the demands of the Kenyan public on the average parliamentarian is unreasonable, and this is true. We cannot expect them to out of CDF resources, to still dig into their own pockets in order to please the Kenyan voter. If that is happening, then we need to separate these issues, that the salary of an MP needs to be personal to self. In other words, it should be your take-home. It should not be considered that you've got to share it with your 300,000 constituents, because your job is legislative. Secondly, we must respect and give teeth and power to our independent commissions. This is a key factor. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission is what brings fairness. It's what makes sure our wage bill is not beyond where it should be. It is what is supposed to curb over expenditure in terms of salaries and allowances, and it should be allowed to do so. The bullying that we see from Parliament, where if you don't give them what you want, they call you into Parliament to fight with you and to threaten you with job losses, needs to stop. But that said, I have another reason why I think that parliamentarians should be reduced. It is not because of BBI, but it is because I personally think our romanticized relationship with CDF, with what an MP does, is actually doing this country injustice. What I mean is this: what we needed is political party representation in parliament, the way they do it in South Africa, where you've got someone who votes for a political party, and if there are 200 seats and that political party gets 2% of the vote, they get 4 seats, right? Which it ensures that across the country, for example, there's a green party and it gets its 4 seats, then you know the people who believe in green ideals for our environment have representation. Now, that is a discussion I'm willing to have. But to discuss the other way, the kind of democracy we gifted ourselves in 2010, then it becomes impossible for us to have a small legislature. Because if you are saying that each MP should represent as close to 1 vote as possible, then the only way to do so is to have the populous counties that have 300,000-400,000 voters split so that you get closer to those ones that have 50,000 voters. There's no other logical way to do it if we are going to continue to insist that we want our constitution and our MPs the way they are. And this is really the difficult decisions that we need to make. So if Kenyans are A, unwilling to give up their love for CDF, and B, none of them is willing to give up their constituency because it is called after my clan or my tribe, then the natural consequence of that and the natural course of justice would require that if I have 300,000 voters and you've got 30,000 voters, then we need to find a way of getting your vote and my vote to mean the same.
Okay.
Now, it's easy to politicize it, but we also need to be honest to the facts.
All right. And that is a very good analysis by you, Mark, of the situation. And I love that you're willing to concede on this matter, even though Gloria has spoken, because Gloria has really spoken against it. I expected you to go all out in the opposite direction. Now, let's talk about the health crisis that we're experiencing in the country. The timing couldn't be worse for medics to actually down their tools, because we are having a pandemic that is ravaging the entire world. Kenya has been roped into this mess, and of course, as everyone is looking to a vaccine, we are not there yet, and therefore the health sector needs to be the focus of all the attention, all the funds, and of course all the care in terms of taking care of medics and ensuring they have all they need to operate at an optimum. Unfortunately, that is not the situation, and we have seen them downing their tools, saying they cannot go on as they risk their own lives without insurance, with some without pay, and many complaining that they do not have PPE. So, Gloria, on this front, what is your opinion?
First of all, I'm very happy that the media is starting to play a very active role in influencing and pushing for positive change. Yesterday, I was watching KTN Prime, and I saw that Standard Group actually wrote a letter to the president, you know, sort of appealing him to, you know, start acting and moving things and, you know, moving those barriers so that we can have our healthcare workers taken care of. So that's a plus on the side of the media. My take on this is that You know, it's very difficult. When I ask Kenyans, when you're a commoner, when you're just Gloria who's not elected, who's not appointed, you have the empathy. You're a human being. You sort of understand what the common Kenyan is going. And then I don't know what happens when you get elected or when you get appointed. I don't know what happens when you suddenly are sitting in a government board, that you lose your senses and you cannot just empathize with the reality on the ground. I really think that one of the problems that we have in this country is that we are not making it mandatory for our leaders. By our leaders, I mean our elected and appointed leaders, to actually use those facilities as their first point of contact. I mean that if we instituted and if we pushed for a policy where the only medical cover and the only perks or advantages that you might have from government is that you are forced to use a level 5 and a level 4 hospital as an elected leader, then you know one day when you're sitting there and there's no oxygen, you actually will be pushed to do something about it. But that's not the case, of course.
Okay.
When you see the healthcare workers really talking about they don't have PPEs, you wonder what the people sitting in KEMSA are actually doing, staring at those PPEs, understanding that our doctors are dying, and them as people are sitting there and guarding that property as if they don't really empathize with our current situation. So I think one of the things that we should look into as we go into the next election is, does that your local leader who's coming to campaign, do they actually go to your level 5, to your level 4? Do they actually queue for a Huduma number or for the services of government? Do they actually understand your life, you, the person on the ground? Because if they do, you can be sure their constituencies that I can pick out here, for instance, Tinderet, the member of parliament there who used to be the former Nini of education. If you go there, you'll understand why there's a lot of change, because this guy actually is a part of the, he feels the pain. So I think our president, and unfortunately it's because he was born and raised in State House, he needs to start feeling that pain that Kenyans are going through.
Okay, Joy, what's your take on this?
There is definitely a need for our public officials to stop being insulated from the consequences of their decisions.
Okay.
Honorable Murunga, when he passed on, unfortunately, it was cited that the hospital he was taken to had no oxygen. And if he had just a little bit of oxygen, he may have been able to recover his strength and may possibly make a full recovery. Same with Senior Nzamba when he had his accident. And they're saying, you know what, if there was an airstrip, he would have been airlifted to Nairobi.
Right.
But when the president was talking about the Big Four agenda and the universal healthcare, universal healthcare was not NHIF for everybody. That was, it was a misrepresentation of what it was. Universal healthcare was ensuring that in every ward of the country, we have at least a certain standard of health facility. So a health center where you can get emergency treatment and be stabilized before you're referred to the next level of a healthcare system. That's what universal healthcare is, such that if I have insurance, or even if I do not have insurance but I have cash, there is an institution, an installation that I can get a certain minimum level, a minimum threshold of health facility, of healthcare before I move to the next facility. And we have not seen that coming through. Some counties have tried, but some have not. And maybe that's why there's the discussion in the BBI about how do we handle our health systems? Do we leave it entirely in national government?
Right.
Or if it's devolution, do we devolve it completely together with the funds such that each county is able to develop its health systems more robustly? What is needed right now is not just a way of throwing money at the problem when a problem becomes big. So the medics are causing trouble. Here is their money. The institutions are, I mean, like when Dr. Mugusu passed on, then you see a pay slip showing that everything has been paid and it's arrears this, arrears that, arrears this. Surely we cannot be a country that just throws money at our problems. Somebody has to think through the processes. And those that have thought through the process need to be given the opportunity to actually implement them. So as far as I'm concerned, where we are now, part of the problem is when our MPs look at a problem, they think, send us helicopters when we fall ill. I mean, like it's all your lives that are worth saving. When we are in a situation like this where the glaring holes in our healthcare system are apparent, this is the time to start cutting the patches to the size of the holes that we can see and make repairs that we need to do.
Okay.
Because where we are right now as a country, We cannot afford to have a sick population. We need to have our people working so that we can build and help our economy recover. But if our people cannot get even the most basic, because like I saw one of the stories, it was a Nduthi guy who had an accident and he needed some stitch on a wound and he couldn't get even that. Surely, those are the marks of a state that is not functioning. So we need a complete overhaul of our healthcare system and a harmonization of how the functions and the money are going to be put in the right person's hands so that we can seek also good accountability for why is this not happening? Because now there's that ping pong. This is government, this is county. This is government, this is county. And the person suffering is the Mwana Kenya wa kawaida.
Yes, yes. Now, Mark, I'd like to bring your attention to some of the few number of stories that we have today regarding the coronavirus. Now, here we're told failure. This is the Daily Nation. Idle cash as health workers suffered. Some 576 million allocated by Treasury for medical cover for doctors on contract remained unclaimed until it was taken away. This is what was told to Senate. Then we have here on the Business Daily paper saying COVID-19 ailing health sector fails doctor who helped children to smile. Then we have the Standard this morning telling us about youth banking on God and hot weather in the COVID fight. Not the hospitals, not the insurance that they could possibly have, not any of the services that they are given. They are banking on God and the hot weather. What do you make of this, Mark?
Well, number one, let's talk about the narrative that we've propagated. Number one, let's understand that if we have localized problems, it does not make the whole country a problem. And this is very, very important. And I feel very sad for the governors and the different hospitals, because those hospitals actually have a leadership that are doing the right thing. But as usual in Kenya, and this is the example I keep giving, from 1920 when Al Capone was arrested to 1989 when the Teflon Don was being dealt with, the United States had a serious cartel and mafia problem. But you never heard them say that there is a mafia, the United States is a mafia state. They spoke to the people and to the individual cases and said, this particular person is mafia and they're wrong. What we do is we publicize what is wrong and then we individualize what is good. We need to flip that. Because if we are going to fix it, if there's a governor, for example, the governor of Vihiga has been mentioned in this thing in quite bad light. Take this baby and put it at his feet. That's how we are able to fix things. Because when I look at people saying that our hospitals are full, no. The truth of the matter is if you go to KU Teaching and Referral Hospital, you will find there are beds there. But because what we've done is we've said every single public hospital is horrible. Now people are losing hope in the system. So one of the things that I do agree with, we do need to highlight the stories of failure, but not to highlight it in the sense that we try to portray that as though our entire health system has fallen apart. Because if indeed our health system had fallen apart, then our preventive medicine would be going to pot right now. Number two, people would be dying of malaria willy-nilly. Number three, people will be dying of HIV willy-nilly, because we must understand and appreciate that there are people who are doing the right thing.
Okay.
And not only that right thing happening, it is irresponsible to assume that because one governor, one hospital has made a mistake, then everyone is making a mistake. But I do agree that our leadership, especially our MPs, whose job it is, by the way, to not only allocate budget, but to ensure those budgets are done, fail in their duties when they say they want to be airlifted all the way to Nairobi so that instead of having a hospital in a village having an oxygen tank which could have saved their life, which by them, mathematically speaking, it's 200,000 shillings an hour hour to hire a chopper MPs, but it does not cost 200,000 shillings to have a canister of oxygen at your nearest hospital. And this is the kind of tone-deaf reaction from our leaders that needs to be stopped. But let us not generalize, and this is what I insist on. Let us call the people who are doing the wrong thing out, and let us also begin to congratulate the people who are doing the right thing. Because if you go, for example, to KU hospital, there is oxygen, there are PPEs, and there's the board there, the management there, and the Ministry of Health is doing an excellent job there. Now, if you go to some...
If the, Mark, yeah?
Short. Yes. I actually agree with Bichache. We need to start calling out those people who are responsible and actually, like you said, placing the baby, that analogy. So which is the reason why when people are doing their duty in actually criticizing the government and questioning initiatives, we've been asking, who has been brought to book in terms of the managed equipment services, which is a big scandal that is touching on our healthcare. We've been asking who has been brought to book on KEMSA, which is also a big scandal on the healthcare.
Indeed.
We've been asking the looming strike that the healthcare workers have been pushing for. Who has actually sat down with those people and have their things been sorted out? Is it sustainable? So we are bringing that baby to the doorstep, whatever that analogy is, because that person is government. So let us also be very clear that when we have government and we elect leaders and we pay taxes to ensure that that government is running, at the very bare minimum, what we expect is an audited report on how our funds are. And if there's a scandal, what we expect is that those leaders who are in those offices are either told to step aside as their investigations, or they take up the responsibility of telling us where our money has gone. By the way, the managed equipment services, he's talking about oxygen being there costing 200,000. We are paying a lot of money to rent equipment, to rent very high-level, sophisticated equipment, which nobody knows how to use, which actually some of them are not even on site. So these things are all the responsibility of government, and that is why we are calling out government and saying it is time they stop playing with our lives.
All right. Yes. Joy, I'd like you to lead with the closing remarks on this matter.
I think as Kenyans, we have gotten to a place where we must realize that there's a direct correlation between the leaders that we elect and the quality of life that we live.
Yes.
And 2020 has been the year that has proved that time has come for us to start doing things more intentionally. Let's not give in to sloganeering or to, the euphoria of the day. Let us interrogate what it is we're getting with our vote. Because if something that we have understood is that when government works, when the institutions work, at the end of the day, our lives are the ones that get better. So even when we talk about KEMSA, we're talking about the pandemic, the management of the pandemic. We're not talking about our healthcare systems. All these rise and fall, everything rises and falls on leadership. That's what John C. Maxwell has told us through the years, and this 2020 has actually demonstrated it. In my opinion, time has come that when we are making decisions as Kenyans, let's do it without passion. Let's do it. This thing of just looking at the political climate of the day and saying that this is a political matter, we've realized it's actually not political. It is people's lives. And this is the year when we have done. But there's something that Mark said earlier that I need to push back on. And I've said it here earlier. We've been so fixated with COVID this year that we've forgotten there are other things that are killing Kenyans. So far, close to 4,000 Kenyans have lost their lives in road accidents. This year alone, we are looking at HIV deaths that are being approximated by the UN at reaching over 20,000 HIV-related deaths. Same thing with malaria. There are things that are ravaging Kenyans like cancer that people are not getting adequate treatment for because even the economic situation is such that they cannot afford this treatment. When I talk about walking and chewing gum at the same time, we need to start doing that in the healthcare system, where we look at it holistically. And I hope Kenyans will come to a place where we keep demanding answers. Let's not allow scandals to die. Let's keep the interest in it, such that we get to a place where our leaders understand when you're doing something and it's affecting our lives, we will hold you to account.
Right. Mark?
Well, quick one. Number one, the government is doing something. Let's talk about cancer, for example. There is a new cancer center at KU Teaching and Referral Hospital. Number Number two, that cancer center is supposed to make the isotopes and different things needed for cancer treatment across the country. So, and this is what I'm talking about. Let us balance our news. And that's all I'm asking our country to do. Let us not always think of our country in a very negative political sense where we're driven purely by passions, and instead of seeing what progress is being done, and that also helps you to identify exactly what needs to be fixed. And it's critical that we do so. Otherwise, if you keep telling Kenyans that all our hospitals are broken, that you can't get any form of treatment, then you're misleading the people. Because one of the problems that we are having in Nairobi, for example, is everyone is running to private hospitals where they're going to have huge bills which are going to affect how insurance is done, instead of them going to public hospitals which actually have space. There's nothing that a private hospital is going to give you to cure COVID that a public hospital can't. And these are the things that we need to solve. So let us take, number one, put the baby aside and say we've got a good baby, and take the brackish water that needs to be thrown away and put it aside and also throw it away. So let's talk about KEMSA and say specifically, why is KEMSA not doing A, B, C, D? But let's also not forget that it's the same KEMSA that is successfully rolling out ARVs to save millions of Kenyans who would have died of HIV. So today, we are talking about 20,000 Kenyans dying of HIV.
Okay.
But if KEMSA was not doing its job, we'll be talking about 2 million.
Okay,
and that's how we need to put things in context.
Okay, wonderful. Gloria, your closing remarks?
I think we are alive to the fact that our leaders are failing us, and Kenyans need to be more aware. I like what Joy Midivo said. We need to stop voting on sensational lines and just, you know, the political temperature of the moment. We need to start understanding that that leader that you vote is the reason you're actually going to die in that government hospital. And unfortunately, there is something that you'll get in a private hospital that you cannot get in a public hospital, because in a private hospital, they probably will not run out of oxygen. But in a level 4, a level 5, chances are that they don't have oxygen. And that is really what we are trying to push for. So I think at the end of the day, it's really just a matter of keeping government accountable, and it is your civic duty and responsibility to call government out and push for positive change.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Gloria Uroba is a youth policy analyst. Mark Bichachi is a communication consultant, while Joy Brenda Midibo is an advocate. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation here in the on Morning Express and bringing context to some of these issues that the country is facing. We take a break. On the other side, Brian Esteli brings us the very latest in the entertainment sector.